Hello there. This is Mike Gonzalez with Green Vigilante Media. This is our inaugural broadcast on SoundCloud. We're here today with Carol A Bouldin, who was the California Assembly District 12 candidate.
42. It's actually 42.
Oh, it was 42.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
With California Assembly District 42 in California. She was on the Green Party ticket. Thanks for being here, Carol.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Equal Rights Amendment.
Are you all rested up about the after the campaign?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I was just looking that up, as a matter of fact, to see what the results are. You keep getting a few more votes, and I now, at the time we had the GA, it was 3.2%. It's now 3.3%, and district-wide. And in my county, the district I'm in was in portions of Riverside and portions of San Bernardino County. In my county, I have 3.7%.
Wow, that's
So,
pretty good.
yeah. So anyway, I was very pleased with those results. I had nightmares that might be 2%.
Right. I mean,
But
that's a good showing for a third-party candidate for sure. I mean, it's very hard to break into the media and everything to get your message out there. So I congratulate you for that effort.
yeah, and thank you for your help with that. I mean, I had another interview with Stuart Alexander, who is a former Peace and Freedom presidential candidate. He does a radio podcast on the web called the Real Left Politics. But other than that, I just had alternative media like that. Certainly nothing else,
Right.
except having some letters to the editor printed in the local paper. But that's about it.
Yeah.
So,
The Green Party certainly ignored.
yeah, definitely.
Hey, so we're here to talk about the recent passage by Illinois for the Equal Rights Amendment. And now we are one state away. They were the 37th state to ratify the ERA. We're one state away from being able to do it nationally and make that an amendment. And you wanted, and I wanted to bring you in on the program to talk about that. Can you give us your opinions on that?
Yes, that is so important that we talk about the Equal Rights Amendment. It is such an urgent issue. It has really just yesterday taken on more urgency by the fact that the Supreme Court just there was a ruling that allowed for, we just have our rights encroached upon and whittled away at by the day, literally. But they just ruled on a case where they're allowing these fake abortion clinics to operate, and that case was taken all the way to the Supreme Court because those of us who are women's rights advocates had advocated for these fake clinics to be censured, so that they can't be leading women into thinking that they're actually a reproductive facility for reproductive functions and health care. And they passed that yesterday. That they ruled that oh no, they can operate and continue to mislead women and offer them no help, really, basically. So other than just trying to get them to to go ahead and complete the pregnancy and that kind of thing, or adopt or something. So that happened yesterday, and then we had Justice Kennedy, who has been the swing vote, announce his retirement at the end of July. So this has come into really urgent focus, the Equal Rights Amendment, because now that Trump is in the White House and he's surrounded by nothing but these people like Mike Pence, who are utter misogynists. I mean, Trump is as well, but we've got these Christian fundamentalists that he has completely empowered in his administration, and they will put one of their picks in there that, really, it's just a matter of, I don't know, months probably that we'll see Roe v. Wade overturned if they don't manage to block, his appointees or his the people that he wants to put in there, because they've been angling to do this really since at least the 80s, and trying to get a case to go to the Supreme Court, and there's plenty of them in all these different states that have passed these draconian anti-abortion laws. So getting back to Illinois, that was on May 30th that Illinois became the 37th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. And we just need now one more state. And the fact of the matter is, in Illinois, it's interesting. I actually marched on Chicago in 1980. I have the little scarf that has the exact date that we marched on the legislature there in Illinois. And, to try to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified by Illinois then. And here it is, how many years later now? This is, 38 years after that. And
this is a long battle for you.
Yeah, it sure is. And, I'll tell you, it's just really, it's so exasperating, because all of the fights that we've had over reproductive rights in all of the states, the fights over equal pay for equal work, the fight for Title IX, the fight for legislation to protect domestic violence, or women that are victims of violence, domestic and otherwise. All of those things, we've been just having our energy dissipated fighting all of these different battles that could have all been avoided had we gotten the Equal Rights Amendment passed. And what's so particularly excruciating and gratifying at the same time about Illinois is that, they changed their actual rules in the State House from 2/3 to 3/5 to ratify an amendment, just to try to derail the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. And finally, that got changed, and that's how we finally now have gotten Illinois to ratify after all these years. So anyway, the fact that we had 3, and now, just in the last 2 years now, well, the last year, really, it was last year, May 22nd, we got Nevada. So we went, and that was 45 years from the last date that had ratified, from the time that the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced and passed in Congress, in the U.S. Congress in 1972. March 22nd, 45 years to the day, they ratified it in Nevada last year. So so now we have Nevada and Illinois, in addition to the other 35 states. So it's just one state to go. And the people that say, well, what about the deadline? Here's the situation on that. First of all, they didn't used to have deadlines on amendments to the Constitution. They started doing that, and it's been kind of intermittent. I believe that they've even put deadlines on amendments to the Constitution, and astonishingly enough, there was an amendment that was introduced in, I believe it was 1789. It was the 26th Amendment. And that was the amendment that made it so that Congress, when they passed a raise, like gave themselves a raise, that it wouldn't go into effect till the following legislative session. And that was introduced, believe it or not, in 1789 and did not get ratified until I believe it was 1991, which was, it was 200, I know the amount of years was 202 years. So that's one very good argument right there, that, we not only has there been episodic putting deadlines on the ratification process, but we had a very recent amendment. As amendments go, 1991 is recent.
Right.
After 202 years, we had one ratified, and then the following amendment, the 27th Amendment, was the one about 18-year-olds being able to vote, and because the argument was because they could enter the armed services at 16 or whatever, or 18 with they didn't have to be 21.
Right.
And now I think it might even be 16. I don't know, but that passed in like 6 months, I believe it was, the whole ratification process. And that just goes to show, when there's a political will, these things happen. But in the case of the Equal Rights Amendment, we've had lots of foes. We started out, states were ratifying it right and left in the 70s. Hawaii, California, Oregon, are lots of states that, got on board really quickly. And we reached that, then it started to slow down a little bit. And we got stalled at the 35. Well, what were the reasons why it stalled? Well, I can tell you exactly. It was the Christian right, led by Jerry Falwell, a group called the so-called moral majority. We used to have bumper stickers that said the moral majority is neither. But it was that group, and it actually started with some group, some Catholic group, and they got the fundamentalist Pentecostal evangelicals on board, and
it was religion that was largely against the Equal Rights Amendment.
Yeah, and it's all about misogyny, and it's all about sexism, because they couldn't care less about life. That has nothing to do with it whatsoever. They're pro-war, they're pro-capital punishment, they're pro-gun. It's an absurdity. The only life they supposedly care about, they don't care about the life of the mother, that's for sure. They just care about non-viable life. Why? Because it's a good political tool to try to derail women's empowerment and women's agency and independence. And that's what this has always been about. So those two foes, as well as, of course, big business. So we could say patriarchy, Christian fundamentalism, and capitalism, the reasons why we still, haven't gotten the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. It was a confluence of those three factors and those three interest groups. Because, why is big business against it? Well, obviously they don't want to. They've never wanted to pay women equal pay for equal work. The fundamentalists want to keep women in a subsidiary role because they're male supremacist, and, patriarchy is male supremacist by definition. So these are the real reasons why it hasn't yet been ratified. Given the fact that we now have all these draconian bills that have been passed on the state level, one of the worst of which was passed recently, making abortion illegal after 6 weeks, when most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. So, any one of these could come before the Supreme Court if Trump gets his nominee in there, which, old Mitch McConnell is champing at the bit to do, could overturn Roe v. Wade. I've been trying to warn people about this for years. It was kind of hanging by a thread. But again, this just points to the absolute urgency of getting the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. And getting back to the deadline, not only is it kind of spurious to begin with, there is a bill in Congress currently, if we can get enough decent people in there in November, that will vote for the bill that's in there right now to extend, do away with the deadline, basically, not extend it. But to do away with the deadline, and it just takes a simple majority, of course, to pass the legislation, and then that'll be a non-issue. And then we just have to get that 38 states, so for the 3/4 of the states to ratify the amendment.
Do you think there's a trend to ratify that in states currently? Because we've just had 2 recently, Nevada and Illinois. Do you think we can get that 38th state?
Oh yes, we have to. Let's put it like that.
Right.
And there are women that have been. I know one woman that's been fighting tirelessly in the state of Florida for decades to try to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified there. There were attempts in Florida and Virginia just last year, both of which failed. But they're still in the offing. The other state, believe it or not, that is a good possibility is North Carolina. So those are probably the 3 most likely states, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. I don't know if I mentioned Virginia, but yeah, those 3 are probably the most likely. But if we have 37, that means there's 13 states, some of whom are, most of whom, I guess, are located either in the Deep South or the Bible Belt, which, doesn't make the ratification there, that likely. But we do have some possibilities, and we've got to make it happen, because Roe v. Wade goes down. We're looking at women in getting butchered in back alleys again, like we used to have. In fact, it's already happening in these states where women are forced into these waiting periods, or there's no Planned Parenthood clinics in the entire state, which they've managed to shut down so many of the family planning clinics and clinics that do abortions. Women are doing things like, giving themselves douches with bleach and horrible things like that, trying to abort. And the fact is, just making abortion illegal is not going to stop abortions. It's just going to force them back into back alleys. And what these people really want to accomplish is, they don't want to just stop abortions. They want to criminalize anybody who attempts to have an abortion, who offers, who performs an abortion or anything. I mean, it's really, really ugly. So women's lives are at stake here. They already are. Women are targeted more than any other group for violence and abuse. And it's high time that, we step up and make sure that we finally get recognized as, as human beings, that with equal rights in the federal Constitution. Several states, by the way, have incorporated the Equal Rights Amendment into their state constitutions, like California, for instance, and a number of other states have done the same. So we have equal protection on the state level, but it's an entirely different thing on the federal level. This is why Scalia could say in the case, where the Walmart case, where women were discriminated against and filed a class action suit, that sorry, but you don't have equal rights according to the federal Constitution. Right. I mean, that case went down in flames, and we've got a Hobby Lobby, and now we have this case yesterday. I don't know the exact name of it, but we need to realize that we aren't talking about 2% of the population here. We're talking about more than half the population that is disenfranchised. If there is an outrage, this is the outrage of the outrages, in my opinion. And the issue that I feel is more important than any other, we have a global war on women. We have female genital mutilation going on, women being tortured and killed. If in the Middle East for having for having sex outside of marriage, or I mean, there's so many terrible things that are done to women, being trafficked and sold into prostitution, and on and on and on. Women are killed by domestic partners, and most of the time the murders in this country are by an intimate of some kind. So we have such widespread, rampant abuse and violence towards women. This would be such a terrible thing if we now lost our reproductive rights. And, you know, people who think that it's going to stop at abortion need to wake up, because we're already seeing, you know, with Hobby Lobby and so on, that they don't, you know, that's the other lie, you know, about how they just care about life, and you know, they want women to have, well, it's forced pregnancy, you know, it's what it is. It's basically forced, not having any choice, you know, having children, unwanted children, which how anyone could think that's a good idea, you know. But anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. It's just, it's so unconscionable.
Yeah, you know, right now, I think you mentioned it, or you touched on it, is so many things are being undone, like the separation of church and state, and we have
Yeah.
the Muslim ban. You know, we have families being separated at the Mexican border. We live in a time where what we thought was very fundamental rights and sacred to American
Values.
values.
Yeah, being undone. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, so absolutely. You know, and you also said that the abortion rights have been, you know, taken away little by, like you said, closing Planned Parenthoods, making different regulations on when and who can perform abortions. Um, I think it is a very critical time to
Yes.
go ahead and finish and you know, go ahead and get the Equal Rights Amendment through, because we need to protect ourselves and the rights of women. As you stated, a disenfranchised group. We're going through the the Me Too movement. Um,
Yeah.
do you think the Me Too movement has kind of reinvigorated the Equal Rights Amendment effort?
Well, I think the people that have been devoted to getting the Equal Rights Amendment through are a different group of people,
Uh-huh.
and that aren't necessarily the same people. I mean, the Me Too movement is more of a popular movement, which, you know, and it's very needed and very, very important, and is why, you know, is very important in waking people up to why it is so critical that we pass the Equal Rights Amendment. I mean, that should be the conclusion of movements like the Me Too movement, because the reason that women are so put upon and exploited, it's all part of, you know, the patriarchal institutionalized sexism, you know, that's part of patriarchy. But, you know, so much of it flows from the fact that, you know, and women don't even realize this, nor do men, that it flows from the fact that we still don't have legal recourse. You know, we have some, but you know, we don't have the same legal recourse we would have if we had full constitutional rights.
Right. And what do you think of the idea? Because I think this is a fact that a lot of people think that the Equal Rights Amendment passed, and that it's a foregone conclusion already, or don't know the history of it. You know, here in California, like you said, and a lot of other states, they have states equal rights. Uh, you know, essentially equal rights amendments. Um, has that kind of put people to sleep, that it's just not at the forefront?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is why I keep saying, um, this is why we need to be talking about it, and this is why, you know, I really feel, you know, the Greens have really fallen down on women's rights issues, in my opinion. You know, it never has been at the forefront. even though we call ourselves a feminist
Right.
party,
Uh-huh.
and we used to even call ourselves post-patriarchal. I don't know why that was dropped, but I guess because patriarchy is hardly anything but post, maybe. But the fact is, we need to be talking about this and championing this like we do all these other issues, and yet you don't see Greens doing that, and you don't see the party on the state or the national level doing that either. And it's something that I've long been critical of this party about, and it needs to change.
Interesting. Um, so
It's always been a back burner issue for Greens. It's like we talk about the environment. We're very concerned about racial equality, and every other group there is,
right.
but nobody really talks about women that much. And in fact, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but when Jill Stein and Sherry Honkala were both running in 2012, two women, I never heard them bring up women's rights, and at one time, unless they were. I don't think actually in that campaign, I don't believe I heard them talk about it one time. They talked about every single other thing under the sun. But and the war on women was raging then. It has been, it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, and literally by the day. But each year, it's gotten exponentially worse, and there was so much that they should have been addressing about that, and pushing for the Equal Rights Amendment to be ratified, and CEDAW, to be ratified. This is another thing that still this country very it's a disgrace, but this country still has not ratified CEDAW, which is it's the Committee on on the Elimination Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And it was adopted by the UN in 1979 in the UN General Assembly. So it's like an international Bill of Rights for women. That's another thing that we should be talking about. But I heard an interview of both Jill and Sherry. They were on Democracy Now! Being interviewed by, when they were running in 2012, being interviewed by another woman, Amy Goodman. Not one of them brought up women's rights at all. I was stupefied.
Wow. Do you think that is because some things have been passed, like, voting rights and some equal pay?
Well, I think it's a pernicious result of patriarchy. I really, I don't know. Women have been so intimidated into silence about every outrage there is. It's just like when 50 women, over 50 women have to come forward about Bill Cosby, and now even over 100 with oh God, I'm blocking on his name. The guy the Hollywood.
Yeah, that was you're making
Harvey Weinman.
Weinstein, yes, Harvey Weinstein.
Sorry, Weinstein, of course. Yeah, when that many women have been victimized by one man, it really tells you something about how afraid women are. The whole system is so unsupportive and so completely um, well, I mean, what's the word? I mean, words fail me to describe how incredibly unsupportive, you know, the whole society is for women to be able to address these things. So, I mean, I think so much of it is fear, and it's fear that has been so um, inculcated uh, and internalized for so long that women don't even recognize it as that, but they just, you know, they tend to um, actively resist, you know, speaking up, and they get angry at other women who do.
Right.
You know, it's just it's been it really it's quite amazing, but I think it's mostly it's fear. I think it's fear based, even if it
Yes.
is recognizes that.
So I think in large part, just an observation, maybe some have just accepted it um, as a condition
Yeah.
of existence. Some are fatigued with the fight because
Yeah.
they've been fighting for so long. Um,
Right.
and I think for people who are, you know, in the Me Too movement, who have been the victims, they're trying to protect something like their job, which supports their families. Um,
Right.
and so, yes, there's just so much pressure and so much force against them.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm, you know, saying about, you know, the institutionalized misogyny and you know, of patriarchy is just, it's incredibly intimidating, and it takes so many different forms. You know, you get, I mean, you get shit for standing up from everybody, from your partner to, you know, to your um, coworkers, to your family, to your you know, your boss, to
Your
your
friends,
minister. I mean, you know, it's like all of it is orchestrated to silence you.
right? So,
So
so Carol, what can we do? What do you think we could do? Organize to get that next state and push that in all of our states. What do we,
yeah,
you know,
here's
as
what.
Green Party and activists, what can we do to get this nailed down and passed? Right.
Yeah, we need to get that last state, and we need to do it as soon as possible. The Green Party in North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida. Um, if we have Green parties in those states, I assume we do. I think we do.
Yeah, I think we
Uh,
do.
that, you know, we should be pressuring them. You know, the rest of us in all the other states that have ratified, like California, we should be pressuring them to make this a priority, and, you know, to get really active and vocal about it,
Right. Good
and make
point.
it part of their, you know, platforms, you know, and part of their, you know, the materials. You know, we should have materials on it, you know, at definitely at the national level, and, you know, we could have it at the state level. Those of us, I would be very happy to write something up for us here in California that we could use to help, you know, mobilize people in the other states, and Californians to, you know, mobilize to get the other states to pass it, you know, to ratify it, I should say.
That's great. I mean, I think that this podcast we can distribute to those states that have not ratified it yet, and try to get some support there. And we could probably get with the clearinghouse committee to, like you said, we could do some some material, some pamphlets or something like that that can help with the ratification, or how to, and who hasn't been, who hasn't ratified the ERA yet. That's a very interesting idea, and hopefully we can do that and get this nailed down.
Yes, and there are on Facebook. By the way, the Feminist Majority is a good resource on this. Oh, and by the way, I have a page on Facebook called "How Women Are Still Denied Our Constitutional Rights." That we can, once we have this audio, we could put this on there, and also hopefully get people to go to that page and read it and like it, whatever.
Sure. Absolutely.
And there's, let me see here. And then one of the other things that I want to do, and Mike, maybe you can help me. Especially if you're on the, a media committee, I guess it wouldn't be so much as the CC, but what I want us to do is show this documentary. It is absolutely an excellent documentary called "Equal Means Equal." I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, I haven't.
A woman named Carol A Lopez. She and I think in conjunction with some of the actresses in Hollywood, put they actually, I think, financed some of it. She's actually the one that is narrating the whole film and interviewing people. Carol Lopez, and it is absolutely an excellent documentary of how bad things are in the U.S., as far as women's rights go, and how desperately we need to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. And I really want to see us show that at the next GA. And Mimi Newton, she said she would try to help us get that done.
Okay, excellent.
If you can help with that in any way, Mike, what we'd have to do is we'd have to. I think it would. It's like a few $100s that you have to pay to show it to a large group. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think we can manage to do that. We could ask for donations and stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
As well. But it makes such a good case for how bad things really are, because people are, like you say, so many people think the Equal Rights Amendment was passed. Right. I was amazed to find that out in recent years, because I certainly knew it hadn't passed, and sure. I was, and the group of women who was, just so angry and so despairing that it didn't pass. But it was amazing that people don't know that. Just to draw a corollary here for a minute, quickly, is sure. How we talk about. I've been active in Move to Amend, and I think we even talked about this. I'm sure we did. The corporate personhood, money is speech, and how pernicious that problem is.
Yes.
And how we need a constitutional amendment is the only real fix to that problem. We've got to amend the Constitution to correct those two unconstitutional legal doctrines of corporate so-called personhood and money as so-called protected speech. Well, that amendment, there is an amendment in Congress right now called the We the People Amendment that Move to Amend has sponsored, that has about 35 co-sponsors right now. Mark Pocan's the one that introduced it a couple of years ago now, or last year maybe. But it was first introduced, I think, 2014. But that amendment is at the very beginning stages of it has, it has to get a lot more sponsors and a whole lot more support and people to become aware of it, to get behind it, put pressure on their representatives and so on, to get that just through, the legislature in Washington. And given, who we have in there now, it's not going to happen until we get some better people in there. But in contrast to that, the Equal Rights Amendment is at the very last stage of that process. So, we have we got it through the legislature way back in 1972, and it's been going through the ratification process ever since. And we now just have one more state to get that passed. So it's the, like a mirror image, complete contrast, where we are in the stage of ratification for those two very important constitutional amendments. But, there's a group here locally in the Inland Empire that call themselves the 28ers, and I've told them before, you're going to have to change your name to the 29ers, because the 28th Amendment is going to be the Equal Rights Amendment. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right, because they're fighting for the, the corporate personhood one, which, we absolutely need too. But the 28th Amendment will be, we are stating this, the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution will be the Equal Rights Amendment. Right, Mike?
Yes, I agree. 100%. And what you say about showing this at the General Assembly, I think it should be at the national level. I think that's where we need it, because we need
yes, I totally agree. We need it at the national level, and and then the people that are running for U.S. Congress, though, can really help, because they will, God, if we're fortunate enough to get Laura or, Kenneth Mejia or Rodolfo in there, they could be, really pressuring the other representatives from these other states, to mobilize their constituencies, about this.
Right. So what you just mentioned is we have 3 candidates in California that made the top 2, Rodolfo Cortez Barragan, Kenneth Mejia, and Laura Wells. There's also a 4th, Sadie Fulton, who could potentially get in from
the top 2 as well.
For top 2 with write-in ballots. They just haven't stopped counting them yet. So
I think she was running for a state assembly seat.
She was running for a state assembly seat. That's correct.
Yeah. Which the other 3 are U.S. Congress seats.
Right. Or also we can reach out to those other states who have people running for national office and even state office, and the states that
and the ones in the state, the ones that are running for state offices in those states are even more important.
Right.
We've got, let me just leave you with, down here at the bottom, there's I just spoke with someone at the Feminist Majority earlier today, and I wanted to leave you with a couple of organizations that are other organizations other than the Feminist Majority that are working on getting the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. One is the eraaction.org.
Okay.
Another one is United, the number 4, equality.com. That's united4equality.com. And then another one is eracoalition.org.
Okay.
And another one is equalrightsamendment.org.
Excellent. I will put these links in the description.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, and the unratified states, let me just tell you those really quickly.
Okay.
And we do have green parties and
Most of them, I'll bet.
yeah, I'm sure most of these states, Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Utah, and Virginia.
Excellent. So if anybody out there is in a position to help this effort out in those states, um, definitely do what you can. And Carol, is there something you want to post? In other words, something on your website that people could get in contact with you if they needed any help?
Yes, sure. I can. I was going to post something about this, and I don't know how long it will be before we have this recording, but I could put it in conjunction with this. When I post this link to this recording, I can then write some stuff on there.
This recording will be available by the end of the day.
Oh, wonderful. Then I'll get this up then, it'll probably be tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
I'll get, once you get me the link, I'll then make a post and put some important, pertinent information and post it also on that, I'll probably put it mainly on the how women are still, but I'll put it a few places, how women are still denied our constitutional rights.
And then do you have a website that you want to state?
A website?
Yeah, your own website?
Yeah, I mean, although my campaign's pretty much over now.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if I'll put it on there.
Uh-huh. But what I'm saying is, do you want to state that here now so that people can, like I said, get in contact with you, know who you are?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good place. They can fill out a little contact form there,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll if they want to get in touch with me. Yeah,
And what's your website?
It's CA Bouldin for AD42.org.
Excellent.
CABOULDIN number 4 AD42.org.
Excellent. And do you plan to run again, Carol?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to be persuaded probably. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I will or not, but
I think it would be a good effort to go ahead and get the ERA ratified.
Yeah, that's what I really want to focus on, to tell you the truth. That's my number one issue.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, Carol. Well, I thank you for talking to us. Was there anything else you wanted to say going out?
No, I don't think so. I just thank you again for the opportunity. And once I get going, I think I covered everything.
Yeah, you did. You're very knowledgeable and you do a very thorough job. That's why I like talking to you, and I hope to talk to you again on other issues because you're.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Michael. I just really appreciate you doing these. It's such a great thing, and you see how sometimes, I mean, it's interesting how it's the guys who are more supportive sometimes of us women when we try to do things, run or whatever, and it's just an interesting phenomenon how that works sometimes.
Well, I don't know many men who don't have mothers, or didn't come from a mother. So
Yeah.
I think we should definitely advocate for the people we care about. And
yeah, well, thank you so much again, Michael, and we'll be in touch then.
thanks a lot, Carol.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.